afternoon, and who's ready to go to sleep after that lunch? So what I'm going to be sharing with you today is an innovation that we've incorporated into our company. Obviously, it's called DeepBlue. We are doing soft-shell crabs. And if you've never heard of that before, it's a relatively niche product where essentially it's normal crabs that are molted, and then we just harvest them right away, right? So they preserve their soft-shelled state. Same crab, just different shell. So we are even though, compared to shrimp and other species, we are a relatively niche product, but we are very proud to say that we are the world's largest soft-shell crab operation. And what that looks like by the numbers is that we have 5 aquaculture sites in Myanmar, with one more being built out. Our facilities are operating off of 2,100 acres, and we're producing about 1,800 tons per year. We provide employment to more than 1,400 workers, and most of whom are women, actually. And so we export worldwide. So chances are, if you've ever gone to a Japanese restaurant, right, you typically see soft-shell crab inside sushi rolls, right? So if you've ever had a roll, like a soft-shell crab roll in the United States, Singapore, Hong Kong, or 20 other different countries, chances are it's actually ours. So we've been in business for over 20 years now, started in 2002. So we pretty much just built out this whole industry in Myanmar. So you can see that back in 2002, right, there's pretty much nothing in terms of soft-shell crab exports. But over the years, we built additional capacity, and right now we are responsible for about 60% of the export out of Myanmar. And essentially we tripled the amount, right, and set soft mud crabs as the #1 export item with the addition of soft-shell crab over here. So, this took a long time, right? We built this out over the course of 20 years. And what we've noticed that the soft-shell crab aquaculture is inherently a very labor-intensive process. And why is that? So, as I mentioned before, soft-shell crabs are crabs that are harvested right after molting. And in order to do so, we keep them inside these individual plastic baskets and wait for them until they molt. And you don't know when they're going to molt, right? So, which means that you have to monitor them 24/7. And additionally, because they're kept inside these individual baskets, then this is a very low density aquaculture process. And therefore, the key issue with soft-shell crab production is that it's very difficult to scale up. And, right now, it's a good problem to have, which is that, now we're seeing more soft-shell crab penetrating the restaurant market, right? I think about 5 years ago, I've only seen it inside Japanese restaurants, but I'm starting to see it more and more in other cuisine types. So the question is, how do you keep up, right? So our solution here is to invest in Phytogenics. So Phytogenics, very simply put, is a plant-based feed additive that we can use to improve mud crab growth and molting rates. So this technology was developed out of Unhas, University Hasanuddin in Indonesia. And so I had the luck to come across this IP. Right, and when I saw their lab data, and we had to have it. So what they showed in the lab is that by adding what I call PhytoEcR to the crab feed, it resulted in a 20% increase in weight gain compared to the negative control. It resulted in a 40% increased molting rate, and it resulted in a 35% quicker time to molt, which is 2 weeks less than normal. Otherwise, it's about like 5 to 6 weeks for the one cycle, right? So you get to shave 2 weeks off of that, which is really significant. So the big question is, this is done in the lab, and if we can actually just replicate whatever data that they have, this is going to be a game changer in the soft shell crab industry. So with regards to how it works, it's actually really quite simple, and I gotta say quite elegant, because it's a way of repurposing plant biology to enhance aquaculture. So what do I mean by that? Crustaceans, whether it's crabs, shrimp, or lobsters or whatever, right? Or even insects, they need to molt to grow. And that process requires the production of this thing called ecdysteroid, or ECR. And it so happens that, that's why they call it the molting hormone. And it so happens that plants also produce ECR, right? Because it's a way to deter insect pests. So, the pests, they try to predate on the plants. The plants secrete this ECR. The ECR disrupts the molting cycle of insects and therefore kill them. So what they've found is that this, plant-derived ECR or PhytoEcR pretty much has the same, physiological function in crabs, and therefore you can extract this PhytoEcR and then introduce it to crabs in order to stimulate molting. So it's a really straightforward mechanism of action. So with regards to the, how we got here, as I mentioned, this is a discovery made by Vujaya at Unhas, right? And they first found it in spinach extract. So, Popeye. But eventually, the product has undergone quite a bit of evolution, whereby they looked at the plant extract from different plant sources, including mulberry leaf, and eventually in 2022, they landed on a proprietary combination of the plant extract that they found to have a much better performance for mud crab growth. In 2023, like I said, I was very fortunate to have met them because we both attended the United Nations FAO mud crab workshop. And over there, I was able to see pretty much like all of the mud crab technologies laid on the table, right? So this was one of them, which I thought was the most promising. So that's why we selected it to bring into our portfolio. So then in 2022, we signed an MOU for a research collaboration. And just this year, we got a government grant to further develop this. So essentially, we are trying to replicate the results in the lab in the commercial setting. So we're really hoping that, even like if we can replicate a fraction of the data that they achieved in the lab, I think it's going to be a big deal. But I would also like to point out that, a lot of this development into phytogenics was going on with in conjunction with, the trend in the feed phytogenic industry. So as you can see, since 2019, a lot of the big names in feed industry, such as, Nutreco, Cargill, Evonad, Innovad, they have all invested in phytogenics, right? Which is a reason to believe for me, right? So if the big guys are doing it, there's got to be something there. So that's why we ultimately pulled the trigger on this IP. So in terms of what type of market opportunity can be unlocked by this technology, as I had mentioned before, soft shell crab, as I mentioned before, soft shell crab production is very difficult to scale up, right? So currently, based on our current, our production capacity, we have a turnover of about 25.3 million per year. We have a plan to build out, additional production capacity over the next 5 years, which essentially more than doubles our current revenue. But that's 5 years, it's a lot of time. Whereas, if we were to apply PhytoEcR, it's pretty much an instantaneous increase in your production yield by about 30%. So, I think it's to us, it's a bit of like a cherry on top, right? To be able to scale up without much, effort. But in addition to a 69 million revenue core business, which is doing softshell crab, it's really important to note that there is also an adjacent opportunity whereby you can develop this into a feed additive for the other species, such as shrimp, right? Which is obviously such a big part of like the feed aquaculture industry. So just like based on some really back of the envelope estimates, we do believe that there could be a 42 million opportunity behind this. So, what is the impact? So, I think to me, it's more. There's a lot of interesting science. There's a lot of interesting technologies out there, right? But as a person who's coming from who's in the industry right now, for us, our perspective is more a pragmatic one, right? Which is, does it work? Will it work? So there are a lot of reasons to believe in this technology. The first thing is that it's a very simple mechanism of action. The role of active steroids in crustaceans is very well understood, right? The pathway is understood, and it's just a simple thing of trying to take this known entity from plants and to apply to crustaceans. And throughout the years, there has been a lot of validation by independent groups. So it's not just like the data coming out of UNHAS, right? They have tried to replicate the data from UNHAS, and they were able to show the same thing. So that's quite reassuring as well. And and as I mentioned before, the industry seems to be trending towards phytogenics. So I do think that there's an opportunity to capitalize on this trend and momentum. It's right here. You can read it. But this project does have the potential to do good, right? Like increasing productivity, but also I want to point out that for the softshell crab industry, it's for better or for worse, is very labor intensive. But at the same time, what that means is that it creates a lot of employment opportunities. And unlike fisheries, right, where you have to drag heavy nets and stuff like that, which means you got to have muscle, right? Softshell crabs is just a lot of checking, monitoring, and lifting pretty light loads, which means that this is actually a really good opportunity of employment for women, especially in the rural setting where there's not a lot of opportunities for them. So we're really hoping that all of this can expand the softshell crab industry, and of course that lead to the beneficial downstream effects. So with that, I'd like to thank everyone. So
thank you, Andrew.
Yeah.